All right. So, part of the way there on this new feature. Where I left off, I still needed to do this whole thing. So, what's happening here is these events are also gathering playable moves. So, selected moves. Gather begin. Run all the events. When we come in here, we now have there's some kind of yes. Reaction moves comes from baking that, and then we do a gather end. And then player decisions happen again, just like they did up here. No, this isn't right. This is the stuff on run moves. All reaction moves. Reaction moves. Stuff on run moves. Gather begin. This gather begin is for player decisions. Here's a question. Can I extract that? I rather do... I think this is more the way. Okay, so that right there, another parameter that we need, the all moves part. That's obviously super bogusy, actually, but that's what we've got for now. Okay. So we begin gathering moves. We run bot brains. Up here, before the run moves happens, there's also this moment something else is going to have to change here. Like, this is going to have to just become count loop. File set. This feels very much like preamble of a state that I don't have specified properly. You see what I mean? Like it's all right there. Okay, everything's working. Okay, let's do this part. So run reactions. Where are we doing? Okay, yeah, right here. What I want to do. Okay, we're checking every character, right? So let's do. Death mark equals 1 right there. I'll just throw this into an entity field. Each entity either gets marked for death or not. And here, reactions. Play those reactions out. So if this character has the death mark and their hearts are still equal to 0, then we detach them from the current party they're in. So that's how we discard them. I don't really have a garbage collection yet, so we leak entities. We'll get to it. Then we loop back to the death checks. And we begin again. Something I need to do is if there were no deaths at all, then we need to end the gather right away. So we began a gather here. If there weren't any deaths in the death check, then we're going to exit the death check and we're not going to actually close that gather unless we do it right here. Then there is a death and somebody maybe gets a move. So here they are figuring out what the set of all moves are. Here they're running the bot brains to gather up the moves they're actually going to run. Here they execute those moves. And then they run the discards, then check again. Yeah. Eventually the check takes us to the rule post-amble. Okay. This looks about like what it looked like before. So okay. Let me think. The question now I think is, does the medic work? Alright, we've got a medic sitting there. Let's start to put together our adventure party. We're gonna want a wizard, 2 farmers, and a medic. Let's see what happens. Okay. I didn't actually switch to using a medic. That's why I can't see a medic anywhere. Sim.c. I want to see the default. Yes, instead of the wizard party, please give me the adventure party. Here we have our medic, emergency first aid kit, and a basic attack. We journey. We have the beginning of an encounter. We go into the fight. Apparently, we got really unlucky and focus fired the mushroom across the board. But the guy who took the hit was also the one who had the protected, so that's not so bad. And then go into another round of the fight, wipe that guy out when he's getting focus fired, and we take 1 hit here, no big deal. Ah, okay, so emergency first aid isn't gonna work yet. Betcha if this character doesn't die, it does die, but if it hadn't died first, it would have been able to use the first aid kit according to the rules, but it would not have been able to according to the bot brains. That's the other thing we have to do. When we set up emergency first aid here, after defining it, I now need to say, okay, RPG brain script tile For one of these, I have to say, okay, this is for the default brain. The default brain for emergency first aid is, if you can use emergency first aid, then do it. Get another bot brain here. Okay. Get into a fight. These two guys each take a hit. Keep going. Get into a fight. These guys again get wiped out. This guy takes a hit and we lose that protected status. They rest. Heal up. Get back that spell. On the road. Well, not had anyone die yet, and that's why we can't see them using the first aid kit, but they kept it all the way to the end. So I think the best way to tell if the first aid kit is working, first of all, is just run this a couple times until I see it actually get used. Okay, so there's no first aid kit here, so the question is, did this one get killed? The answer is yes. Okay, try again. Kept it till the end. No, he didn't. Got killed. Oh, that one proved that it didn't work because someone else got killed and he didn't use it. So here we go. This proves it doesn't work. Right here, this guy gets hit. He should have an opportunity to use his first aid kit, his emergency first aid, and he doesn't when this happened. Between this and this, there should be right here a use of the first aid kit. What didn't happen? Okay, so I'm gonna take a guess. I think that I can say that we know it should at least get as far as, I go into RPG. How do you rpg.game.scripts emergency first aid. I think we should be getting as far as hitting this. Whoa, what went there? Why? Okay. So, one of your allies is dying. Of course, I wonder if we have any enforcement for the possibility that the one who's dying is you. But for now, let's just go with it. An ally is dying. I turned off this part. Okay, right. So the question is, how do I want to actually set up this whole concept of a reaction? I could do it this way, saying don't need a conditional necessarily. What we need is to just say that ally or dying events can push moves because they are reactable. They can push reaction moves. And that's it. That's all I would have to say. Right? I would just turn this on. And now when I run this, assuming I actually have the breakpoint in there still, I do. It should be able to hit this breakpoint. It did before. What? It hit it first try last time. Now I'm not getting it at all. Can't move these around, can I? That's too bad. Maybe I can like. Can I? No. Um, okay. Show me which party it is that we're. I want to see a case where we're looking at party 0. Here we go, party 0. Event on party. For each character, for each tile. If there's a clause. Okay. You're telling me. Okay, so we're currently inside that. We've got this to end it. Yes, run until. Okay, so you found one that has a clause for the ally dying event. You found a tile with the clause for ally dying event, and it's the emergency first aid tile. That's good. Now you're telling me the condition on that clause is null for the event ally dying. I think that's right. I think that's what I actually intend for it to be, but how is it like that? Shouldn't this actually be applying? Okay. Okay. We want one where I is 0. There it is. Then we come in here. We do have a condition, right? We're going to run the condition. That's this breakpoint. We finally hit it. The result is 1. Yes, you can run this. So everything but the after event. And there we go. Then we should end up here. We give each character one reaction move. You know, it occurs to me that you could still have tiles set for reactions from before. You'd have to. We got to do the move counters better than this, but anyways, calculate the move set here. All reaction moves means 1. There's a reaction move. Then we begin to gather again. We don't want to actually be scanning the bot brains, do we? Or scanning the decisions like that. That's a mistake. This is not about saying, give me these decisions. Really what's happening is we have a decision. That system sucks. Whatever. We'll do it better later. Set up the reaction. Instead of looking at each decision again, that doesn't actually do the right thing. What we're doing is we're just assuming that each party gets the equivalent of a move decision here. So each party gets root bot brain and we'll just substitute in a phony decision struct. Which will be set up to trigger this path here. Okay. So again, we want this when it says 0. When that's done, we expect to come here and find that there's a move in the tile set. There is in the move set. We run decisions from both parties, end up here. The moves that got played include the reaction now. We run the reaction and we go to the discard step. And sooner or later we should find a character who has the death mark, but who then we don't end up detaching. This one is getting detached anyway. But maybe there's another. This one's getting detached too. Okay. Let me just double check that like targeting works there. Game scripts target equals target count equals target equals break. Okay, I'm going to pull up the debugger again. And we're going to now put a breakpoint right here in the use clause of the emergency first aid move. Yeah, so that's not happening. That's not happening. Weird. So let's leave this here. We'll be interested in seeing what happens when we try to make this occur. But I expect, I think I know what's happening. And then let's go visit shuffle and run moves. I'll bet you that when we shuffle and run moves RPG context, have a feeling that if we are here, wait, I can see the issue right here. Thank you for excusing me while I washed up after that sneeze. Now, where were we? I think that it must be. Oh, right, this. This still needs to occur. And I also just want to take a quick look, like, are there any other places where that kind of pattern set up? Yeah, don't love this part of the system yet. Okay. I want to use the debugger still. Do we hit the breakpoint now? Yes. We find a dying enemy. Yes. Target them and save them. Yes. Well, let's hold off on that last promise here. We get here. If we can get to here without reaching here. Okay. This is the other party, so it's not our character. Yeah. Cool. First aid kit made it to the end and nobody died. The first aid kit made it to the end and nobody died. The first aid kit did not make it to the end and two of them still died. Wow. Okay, first aid kit got used though. So it must have been one of these guys, right? They got double hit by one of these two and they're both hit. Oh, it was this one. Here it is. He got hit by both of them. First aid kit brought him back with one heart. See that? The heart is back and the first aid kit is gone. Okay. So that's the reaction system. Kind of pushed things a little bit farther and revealed some more of the unfinished decisions here. I think if it had just been quick action activity, we were already, feeling some unsettledness with that move system. But now it's been pushed a step further and it's just gotta get fixed. But there's also this new thing being revealed of the relationship between my machine stack and the rules and the ability to the rules on when things are getting pushed onto that stack feels like it wants to shift because the death checks would fit in that pattern if the pattern was a little bit different, and the pattern we have doesn't exactly feel 100% right anyways. So there's something there still. There's also the state array stuff that needs to get visited here. But point is, that's cool. So we have a medic. Something I'd love to be able to do before too long is to measure out the value of having a medic over just a farmer or other character. In order to get there, we'd need to push another mode here so that we could compare multiple parties side by side. And I don't really feel like getting all the way into that just yet. I think though, condition, this doesn't need a condition anymore because it's a reaction. And we do have condition clauses up and running, even though I don't use any right now. Okay. Okay. What? What is next? Let me check a few things. Are the moves shuffle and run? I want to know if the shuffle and run moves. Well, okay. This one's out. Machine step got upgraded. Yeah, we're just like, no. Yeah, I just can't because I don't know how it could go pretty far. All right, what's next? I could look into this problem with the move counters. I don't know. I think that the thing that's just sticking with me is that this death check thing really feels like it needs to escape and be one of the rules. And I'm kind of inclined to just take a shot at like checking this part in. Actually, you know what? Today it's 5 p.m. It's the end of the day anyways. I put in 3 hours this morning instead of the usual like 1 or 2. So the fact is this could be a short one, and I could say tomorrow I can take on this task of pulling the death checks out into their own rule. That has us still 1 day away from being able to start looking at the visual interface. But this is one of the last things between this goal and that. So there's another dead code. Get rid of it. And I would like to have that because then it would show up in the log more clearly and stuff. So like this code here that figures out if there's anyone dying could be, I mean, it could be basically free because we would just put it in the heart tile that it, when it gets decremented, if it gets decremented to 0, it'll flag something that will queue up a death check. Right? And that'll be the same that anyone else could do, you know? Queue up a change of state. A death check just means after you're done running all these moves, you check and see if anyone's at. You do all this work. You resolve the fact that some of your characters are dying. The reactions. So the queuing up of the death check happens earlier on. It happens here during the running of the moves and even during the events here. So from the beginning of, so we have the init stage, which by its main property is to run the preamble and set up player moves. And it also runs the event that starts the round. And then moves are chosen, moves are executed. And anywhere along the way, these interruptions can get queued up. So once all the moves have been resolved, that's the catch right there, isn't it? The catch is I don't want it to always be whenever all the moves are resolved. I want it to be right away sometimes and after everything is resolved later. So I guess what happens is you stick your interrupt onto one of several queues. The queue could be the queue of all the interrupts that happen as soon as this move is finished, resolving. Or the queue could be the set of interrupts that happen after all of the moves are resolved. And so HP gets set to 0, we queue up the death check state on the spot where all the moves have been finished at this hierarchy. I think that's right. And then, of course, if I want to tweak the rules, if I just decide I want other things to happen, I can always just put death checks in the other queue and say it's when a move finishes. If a death check got queued up, then go for it then. The other piece that I guess I'm considering is if I have multiple things can get queued up on either of these points, what's the ordering? Like, how does the order get resolved on these interruptions? Um, because something like, you know, two things happening rather simultaneously, you could imagine it just the rules it's randomized, it's shuffled, or it could be that it's player determined. Like all of these things are happening at once. Well, the question is, what is a reaction? If reaction is actually a mistake, and what actually is happening there is that this isn't a quote unquote reaction, it's just a move that you can use under a specific state. Now we kind of have that, except I kind of like the old version of this was pretty unclear if it was right. I'm pretty sure that sooner or later it has to go. Right, there's this thing here where I say when you use this move, or you can use this move, and then instead of having a conditional, it just says when this state, this the state, when you're in this state. And I've come to the conclusion that I don't want that because there's actually other states where I want to be able to use attacks. Uh, there are other some states, some tiles which you want to be able to use in multiple states. Like run, is run sitting around here somewhere? All right, so run ends up having to duplicate its own clause. So I think that this was wrong. And this might become something more like quick action. Let me just make an example here, right? This would be like quick action. There'd be none of this. This would be what it looks like to use the thing, but then there'd have to be a condition on it that's like RPG tile script condition. So if somebody is dying, then the emergency first aid move is doable. And this over here would be like if the current machine is... this would have a conditional that would be different to check if we're in a flee or chase scenario, if we're in a running state somehow. I don't know. I don't know. Still not quite clear, is it? How I want to... The question here is how do I want to phrase the language for when you can use a move? If this move just becomes a regular old move, but it's only usable when someone's dying, then the question is how am I going to phrase the rule that says it's only usable when someone's dying? Similarly, if running is a move that only makes sense when you're in one of these chase scenarios, but it makes sense no matter which side of the chase scenario you're on, And how do I really want to express the when it's usable? Like maybe what I'm doing here that's making this harder is that what I really want is like no. I mean, it could just be that it's a conditional. And so this says if you're in the dying state, or if you're in the machine, if you're in the dying state machine, then you can use emergency first aid. Here would say if you're not just in the encounter state machine, but you're specifically in one of the chase states, chase sequence, chase scene states, then this move is available, right? You'd have to just handwrite these conditionals. Um, I mean, it's not the worst. Now, this has the weird effect that it means that a quick action that can be applied in any case could be applied at this time too. So, like, if you had a quick action that was something other than reaction to death, then you could use it here. And that might not be the flow I have in mind either. It's not really a full round. So maybe in that way it is the case that reactions and even smaller, another category of move that's like lighter than a quick action, and that reactions are used for these sort of moments rather than for general encounter turn order stuff. And of course, this would mean it's not an event anymore. Like ally dying in the that event wouldn't need to exist. Instead, the way you would make a hook that applies when someone is dying is by making a hook that applies. Well, I don't know. Maybe you still want the dying events for things too, but they would be for effects that are automatic instead of moves. I think it's right though. I think anywhere where I want something like the moves to happen, I should be converting it into a state. I think this is the right plan. Okay, so like I said, I think this is the end of the day for me. I'm a little bit too gassed to write actual new code. But what I'm observing here is that probably the next big move to make to move towards getting this all figured out is to take all this death check stuff that I did today, which has currently been hard coded into the loop, and reformat both the rule system and the main loop enough so that I can pull the death checks out as one of the rules instead of having it hard coded like this. If I get to the point where I can do that, then I think I'm going to be all set. I also still would love to solve this before I move on. So we got this one, and we got make death checks a standard rule state machine. And then yeah, there's this whole thing with the move counter, move kind, tile confusion. That might be worth looking at too before I go to the tile board. And there's the okay. All right, I think that's it for today. So thanks for stopping by if you've been hanging out. As I sign off, I'll take this moment to remind anyone who's hanging out and following this project that you can go over to mrforth.com and check out more about what I do and support me. I recently announced, and I should probably make a blog post about this too, but I haven't yet. But I recently announced to everyone who's on the newsletter, which you can be if you go to mrforth.com and you go to this button right here on the main page. But I announced that this project I'm working on, the RPG simulator, is going to be my main focus, and I'm going to embrace the fact that it is essentially a game. I don't really know if the plan 100% is to ship a game. Like, that's not necessarily the plan, but it very well could be. And it's starting to feel more and more reasonable to embrace that than anything else with what way all this is going. So, moving forward, I'm gonna be working on this as if it's a game. I've got the asset viewer. If you haven't seen this thing yet, I got the basics of like 3D space and camera and sprite renderer for pixely art. And I'd love to use this setup to fill out, like, you can imagine I want like characters here, and they fight each other, and then there's like environments that match the environments. I want to actually use this to see the simulations happening. Right, we have the wizard and the medic so far. I want to see all of those guys doing their special moves, and I want to see I want to be able to like step through it or let it play out as an animation. And so I'm going to try to put these two together sometime over the next couple weeks. That's what I'm shooting for. The only reason we didn't get straight into it today is because I feel like it's going to make a big difference to get the rest of the rules figured out first before I start. Well, some of the ideas I have for how to do this next step will involve some pretty deep plumbing of a new system into the simulator. And so I wanted to have everything else sort of already working before I got there, in terms of main features that I know I would like to still support from the first iteration RPG simulator. So we are very close to having that goal now with the medic in. I think that what's mostly left is clean up and testing out a few more character scripts and tile scripts and stuff. And then we'll be good to go on looking at the simulations with the visualizer. With that, I am going to sign off for today. Thanks for coming around and seeing what I'm up to, and I will see you all around the internet later.